January 22nd, Tuesday, and 5:20 p.m. Video 5 of 5 for the day, and doing DBT. Wearing pink, supporting Trump. Video 1 of today has why it's written the way it is. Next time, possibly I'll just make a sticker, but for today I was making a point on slight behavior because I am not a DBT teacher. I'm a client, former client, with also an additional lot of psychological consumption experience, both willing and unwilling. And I do have permission from the teachers that accumulated, compiled, created this information to go ahead and read it out loud online and give, my experiences with both material, because it kind of jives with the way that I finally figured out how to learned how to live my life. So my experience with my technique, mashing with their technique, and what's the other thing? Don't know. But here is one other thing. I do smoke medical marijuana, and there's that too. So definitely anybody that does watch these is doing it at their own risk. You're always advised to go in and get professional mental health counseling, especially when you're doing DBT. You want to do the groups and individual counseling, both at the same time. And in video number 1 from today, the introduction, I think it was, I go video 1 and 2 and 3 especially, but mostly 1. I go over the rules in the introduction of why it's important to be in counseling and stuff like that. And at the same time, I know that not all of us have access to counseling or can even afford it or anything like that, and so we just do the best that we can sometimes. That's that. But be aware that anytime that you start doing any kind of healing work, from dietary to massage therapist or any kind of body work to any of the modalities of mental health, because there's definitely different kinds of therapies that you can go into, not just talk therapy but non-talk therapy, that is going to stir up old stuff, sediment, like maybe shaking a wine bottle. I don't know if there's yucky stuff at the bottom of wine bottles, but also a nicer image might be stirring some soup. Now we're 3 minutes in, with me doinking around, you probably are warned enough. So we're at Guidelines for Dialectical Thinking. It's an introduction handout. Being dialectical means letting go of self-righteous indignation, letting go of black and white, all or nothing ways of seeing a situation, looking for what is left out of your understanding of a situation, finding a way to validate the other person's point of view, expanding your way of seeing things, getting unstuck from standoffs and conflicts, being more flexible and approachable, avoiding assumptions and blaming. So there's do's and don'ts that we all want to do. So the do's are: move away from either or thinking to both and thinking. Avoid extreme words like always, never, and you make me. And my personal thing on you make me is that when you let someone make you do something, you're basically giving away your power. Sometimes you can let them make you do something, but I suppose then it's because you care about the situation. Example: instead of saying, everyone always treats me unfairly, say, sometimes I am treated fairly, and at other times I am treated unfairly. If you can be that mature, we all work at it. Practice looking at all sides of a situation and points of view. Find the kernel of truth in every side. Remember, no one owns the truth. Be open and willing. If you feel indignant or outraged, you are not being dialectical. You're out in the panic zone, which also is in an earlier video from today. use I feel statements instead of you are statements. I can't get into that right now. Accept the different opinions can be legitimate even if you do not agree with them. Okay, accept that different opinions can be legitimate even if you do not agree with them. I can see your point of view even though I do not agree with it. And using I feel statements instead of you are statements, it's like instead of saying to someone, you are such a jerk and it pisses me off, you would say more like, I feel so pissed off when you say that you're going to be here at 7 o'clock and we're going to have dinner and stuff, and then I have dinner made and then you don't show up until 9:30 at night. I feel so angry. And that way you're keeping the power of your feelings in your own, because then you definitely can decide what to do about that angry feeling. Like, do you have to put up with it? What could you do? What are your problem solving options? Then you go back to that 4 problem solving options. All right. So then, accept that different opinions can be legitimate even if you do not agree with them. I can see your point of view even though I do not agree with it. So I could see that you don't want to come home until 9:30 because you're hanging out with your friends. And if you want to hang out with your friends more than you want to come home and have dinner made for you, that's fine, because I'm not making dinner. I already ate. Have a nice night. You don't have to be jerky about it. Just be like that. Don't assume that you know what others are thinking. Also, don't do that if it's going to get you like beaten up or anything. Not make the dinner. Just make it. Be happy. Don't assume that you know what others are thinking. Ask them to clarify. What did you mean when you said? And don't expect others to know what you are thinking. Be clear. What I'm trying to say is, so, like, I don't know if I made it that right. So when you're talking to other people, don't assume, and just be like, that one was easy. I think I did okay without reading that. Let's smoke another bowl. This is video number 5. We're done. And now, the shining word and, which I really like this poem. Who's it by? It's from Richard Rohr. I'm gonna turn on the lights. Yep, R-O-H-R. Richard Rohr, The Naked Now. Naked words. The naked shining word and. And teaches us to say yes. And allows us to be both and. And keeps us from either or. And teaches us to be patient and long-suffering. And is willing to wait for insight and integration. And keeps us from dualistic thinking. And does not divide the field of the moment. And helps us to live in the always imperfect now. And keeps us inclusive and compassionate toward everything. And demands that our contemplation become action. And insists that our action is also contemplative. And heals our racism, sexism, heterosexism, and classism. I think there's more isms too. There's religionism, snobbyism. Okay. And keeps us from the false choice of liberal or conservative. And allows us to critique both sides of things. And allows us to enjoy both sides of things. And is far beyond any one nation or political party. And helps us face and accept our own dark side sometimes. And allows us to ask for forgiveness and to apologize. And is the mystery of paradox in all things, and is the way of mercy, and makes daily practical love possible, and does not trust love if it is not also justice. This is my favorite line. And does not trust love if it is not also justice. and does not trust justice if it is not also love, and is far beyond my religion versus your religion, and allows us to be both distinct and yet united, and is the very mystery of Trinity. So if I was going to make this into like positive statements, I might make like and makes daily practical love possible its own thing, but then I would go into the and does not trust love if it is not also justice, and does not trust justice if it is not also love, and is far beyond my religion versus your religion, and allows us to be both distinct and yet united, and is the very mystery of Trinity. Because the first part is a little bit mushy. When I first heard it, I was like far gone into the emotional side of the circle. The circles of wise mind. Now, we're going to do the teepee, and behind the teepee is my version of it, which I'm just going to say kind of a little bit hurt. My therapist, I believe, is the one that came up with the teepee, and the teepee is really confusing to me, and I just love my therapist. She's so sweet. I have a different version that I think is easier, and it's funny, but it's inappropriate, so I'm just going to do the teepee, then I'm going to pause. And people that don't have a sense of humor that can handle a bare butt joke, should turn off the video at that moment. And I apologize to my counselor, but I'm still going to do it because I'm always just... This is the teepee version. It's like... This is a timeline from past to present. And this is the teepee of the now, where we're supposed to take shelter. This is why I can be by myself and be crazy, because I amuse myself. Oh, crash. I only amuse myself in certain situations. Other times I cry and cry and cry, so it's not that funny. Okay. We really flood ourselves when we spend time in the past and future. If in my now moment I get too caught up in the past or future, dang it, I act on old stuff. That would be baggage, but we're supposed to look at it as it could either be baggage or it could be a backpack. If in my now, the past is all a part of who we are as a person. In the future, we're just making this stuff up, and we can make plans and be open to possibilities. So you can get caught up in the past can be a good, beneficial thing with like the backpack, or it can be a bad, negative thing with like a whole steamer trunk full of excess baggage that you don't need. And the same with the future. It can be like a positive, where you look forward into the future and see your dreams, plans, goals. Or if you do it too much or do it in a negative way, you end up with like fear, anxiety, and I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. Or maybe like there's a different way to get stuck, where you're just like daydreaming all the time instead of taking positive action. So the positive sides of past experience can be like bring you wisdom, experience, mastery, the smarts. The negative side, the baggagey kind, can be like traumas, failures, regrets. You can go on about missed opportunities, unresolved stuff. And then I think we did the fear and anxiety parts. So bringing a backpack of knowledge forward with you, you go into the teepee of the now, where I guess you just hang out and don't think too much about the future. Maybe you just like do your beadwork. So The unresolved stuff and the missed opportunities, regrets, failures, trauma, this is not the stuff we mastered. That's why we keep coming back to it, and it's difficult to put the lid on and wrap it up. We keep dragging this stuff along with us as if there will be another opportunity to change the past. Playing it over and over wears us out. Living in the past equals depression. Or increased depression. And I suppose, that might be like if you don't do anything about it. If something's bugging you about the past, do something. If something's bugging and bugging and bugging you about the past, that means that there's like unresolved stuff maybe that you're not just dwelling on, but that you need to do something about. Like if you wanted to learn how to ride a bike and you still don't know how to ride a bike, and you know you're just like dwelling on the fact that you can't ride a bike, and you're like 55 years old or whatever, and so what? Just like put on a whole bunch of padding and get in there and figure out how to ride a bike, possibly. I mean, if you've got some kind of medical thing going on when you're 55, then of course you can't. Then you have to learn how to get over it. I'm just trying to say some things. Don't let it hold you back that you didn't learn something when it's possible that you could still learn how to do it, and resolve that if that's what the issue is. That's a now thing. Or forgive somebody, or take a nap. Just kidding. Maybe. Oh, and now we're going to pause because we're going to the inappropriate version of that. Although this time explaining it, see, that's why these videos have been so great so far to help me get it together myself, because I haven't gone over the information for a long time. And then frankly, every time we go over the TP, it's just like so frustrating because it's like this way, that way, the other way. There's 10 people asking questions in the group, and you're just like trying to pay attention to all of it, and none of it's making sense, and it's not linear at all. I mean, it's just like sprawled out all across the page. I mean, really, look at that. Look at that diagram. It's not even a diagram. It's more like some kind of impressionistic something or other, you know, like those Monet paintings where it's like, is that a pond and a lily, or like a blob of, I'm not going to say it, that would be a trigger. So that's why. But then I explained it twice now to myself without any interruptions. And I got it better. But now we're going to pause, because we have to pause, because I'm still going to show the inappropriate version because it's funny. But it is inappropriate. I drew a naked butt. Not very well, but I did. Pausing. So my version isn't really about bringing wisdom forward or anything. It's just like taking that linear time thing and looking at past and future and the present and thinking of it in a positive and negative fashion. So it's just like what happens. It's basically more it's more negative, a negative view of what happens if you don't do a good job of balancing it, and why you want to avoid dwelling in either the past or the future too much, because this is why. Because there's the past, there's the future, there's the feet, there's the butt, there's the now. Because if you just have you have to stand up, get your feet together, quit squatting on the now. Then my counselor's feelings got a little bit hurt. But now I understand the teepee better, and it's much nicer. I like it. That's the end of that